Good day and welcome to our company law case reviewability. I'm ADHAM, your studio host for today's special episode. Joining me are our three reporters, Anis, FARAHIN and Safi, who will each be presenting different parts of the case in detail. Today we are bringing you an in-depth and comprehensive special coverage of a significant Malaysian High Court decision involving the doctrine of lifting and piercing the corporate veil. The case is Chong Yun Choi Trading as Wang Li Seafood Trading and another an 88 restaurant World Thai Senior Berhad and another 2025. This special bulletin will walk you through the detailed facts of the case, the legal issues, the governing legal principles, the court decisions, and finally our student commentary and conclusion. Let us begin with the facts of the case.
Thank you, Adham. This case involved a commercial dispute from a business relationship. The plaintiff, Wang Li Seafood Trading, supplied seafood to 88 restaurant Go Thai Sdn Bhd between November 2019 and March 2020. All deliveries were requested, delivered and acknowledged by sign of delivery orders. The total amount due was 139,756 ringgit 10 cents payable on cash on delivery terms. However, the company had failed to pay despite receiving the goods without complaint. After several demands due to plaintiff issued a legal notice, the company did not respond or appear in court and a judgment in default was entered against it on 15 July 2020. The case then continued against the company's director, the second to fourth defendant. The judgment applied only to the company, but the plaintiff argued that the directors had controlled the company and used it to avoid paying the debt. Evidence shows that the directors knew about the debt from November 2019. Instead of paying, they stopped the restaurant's operation due to COVID-19. After receiving the notice of demand, they had sold the restaurant business to a new company called Dragon Crest Restaurant for Rm 320,000 ringgit, even though the company had debts of about 800,000 ringgit. The sale agreement falsely stated that there was no legal claim. The transaction was done without proper records, audited accounts or board of approval, even though the directors have given inconsistent evidence. This fact has led the court to closely examine the directors' conduct. Turning now to the legal issues, the court considered three main questions in this case. First, whether the first defendant was liable for the unpaid sum arising from the plaintiff's supply of seafood. Secondly, whether the facts justified lifting or piercing the first defendant's corporate veil. And thirdly, whether the conduct of the second, third and fourth defendant amounted to an abuse of the corporate structure warranting personal liability. This issue framed the court's legal analysis. That's all from me, and I now shall handle our legal analysis, who will explain the applicable legal principle in details.
To begin, the court reaffirmed that the basic rule of a company law is a company is a separate legal entity distinct from its director and shareholders. These principles come from the case of Salomon and A. Salomon and Company Limited 1897 and has been consistently upheld in Malaysia, including by the Federal Court in the case of RAFI and another and Wong Yu Wee 2023. While this definition ordinarily protects director from personal liability, Malaysian courts recognize limited exception where the corporate veil may be lifted, particularly when the company is used for a wrongful purpose. In determining when the veil can be pierced, the High Court referred to the case of GS Yuasa Corp and GBI Marketing Malaysia Sdn Bhd 2017, which set out two cumulative requirements. First, lifting the veil must be necessary in the interest of justice, and second, there must be special circumstances. The judgment then identified these circumstances as including actual fraud, common law fraud, equitable fraud, evasion of obligation, and also abuse of corporate personality. Moreover, to identify what amounts to special circumstances, the court relied on several federal court decisions. First, in Solid Investment Limited and Alcatel-Lucent M. Sdn Bhd 2014, the corporate veil was lifted where the company served as a vehicle for wrongful conduct. Second, in Gurbachan Singh and Velasamy 2015, the court held that the veil may be pierced when the company is used to avoid existing legal obligation, including debts. And similarly, in the case of Jija Engineering and Construction Sdn Bhd and Yip Chi Seng and Sons Sdn Bhd 2015, the court confirmed that the separate personality will not be respected when the company is merely a facade concealing wrongdoing. Moreover, the judge also referred to the case of Ong Leong Cheong and Kala M. Sundar Berhad 2021, which explained the distinction between the concealment principle and also the evasion principle. Under the concealment principle, the court may look behind the corporate structure to identify a true color. Furthermore, under the evasion principle, however, the veil may be pierced when a company is inserted to defeat or frustrate the enforcement of an existing legal right. Lastly, the court examined the case of RDS Bina Sundar Berhad and Ong Chin Ho 2014, where the veil was lifted because the company was misused to avoid debts and also dispose of assets in a manner of amounting to equitable fraud. The High Court found similar conduct in the present case, and defendants sold the first defendant at an undervalue and entered into an agreement falsely declaring that there is no debt existed. This amounted to an equitable fraud and supported the court decision to pierce the corporate veil and hold the director personally liable. With that explanation, that is all for my report, and for the next part, I will pass it to my friend, our reporter, who will share the court decision in this case.
For the clear explanation, I will now move on to the court's decision. During the trial, the court found that the second, third and fourth defendant had deliberately attempted to evade their obligations to the plaintiff through conduct amounting to equitable fraud. A key indicator was that the first defendant, which is the company that had owed the debt, had failed to enter an appearance in the court, while the second, third and fourth defendant had defended the claim personally. This suggested that the directors of the company were intentionally allowing the company to remain inactive so that any judgment will be against an empty and asset-stripped entity, thereby shielding themselves from any liability. The court viewed this as an improper use of the corporate structure to avoid existing obligations. Further evidence of improper conduct was the sale of the first defendant to a third party that was carried out at significantly undervalued price without proper documentation and under false representation that there were no pending legal proceedings, even though the directors of the company were already aware of the plaintiff's notice of demand. This demonstrated an intention to conceal the liabilities, mislead the third purchaser, and prevent money recovery to the plaintiff. Applying the evasion principle, the court held that the corporate veil should be pierced. As a result, the second, third and fourth defendant were held to be jointly and severally liable for the first defendant obligations and were ordered to pay 139,756 ringgit with 5% interest from the date of judgment until full settlement, as well as 10,000 ringgit in costs. With that, I conclude my report and return the segment to our studios for commentary and conclusion.
Thank you for the comprehensive report. I will now continue with our commentary segment where we examine the core legal themes, highlight the key issues, and link them to wider implications for Malaysian company law. The High Court's decision in Chong Yin Choi, trading as Wang Li Seafood Trading and another, and ATA Restaurant Wu Tai Sundar Berhad and another 2025 illustrate how the court approaches lifting or piercing the corporate veil, particularly in cases involving breach of obligations and equitable fraud. This commentary critically analyzed the court reasoning and its impact on the future applications of these doctrines. The central issue was whether the first defendant could be held personally liable for the unpaid sums arising from the plaintiff's seafood supply, despite the involvement of second, third and fourth defendant. The High Court reaffirmed that the veil will be lifted when the corporate personality is used as a tool for dishonesty or evasion. In its reasoning, the court relied on the established framework set out by the Federal Court in the Solid Investments Limited and Alcatel-Lucent Sundar Berhad 2014, which confirms that the corporate may veil pierce to prevent misuse of the corporate structure. This authority requires two cumulative conditions. First, the piercing in the interest of justice, and second, that special circumstances exist such as actual fraud, equitable fraud, evasion of obligations, or abuse of corporate personality. While separate legal personality remains fundamental as established in Solomon and Solomon Corporation Limited 1879, it cannot shield those who manipulate the corporate form for improper purposes. This decision carries important implications. It signals increased judicial willingness to pierce the veil where directors use corporate structures to avoid legitimate obligations. It also reinforces the moral and equitable foundations of corporate governance, emphasizing honesty and transparency. Directors may now face greater scrutiny, especially in cases involving undervalued asset disposal, rush transaction, false declarations, or non-compliance with corporate documentation requirements. The ruling further strengthens creditor protection by preventing directors from relying on corporate personality to defeat genuine debts. In conclusion, the case demonstrates the court readiness to pierce the corporate veil where directors misuse the company to evade obligations. The evidence of equitable fraud, such as failure to enter appearance, asset disposal at undervalued, and misrepresentation, justified applying the evasion principle, rendering the directors jointly and severely liable. This case confirms that corporate personality is not absolute and will be disregarded when deployed as a vehicle for fraud or evasion. Thank you for watching. I will see you again in the next episode of Legal Insight. Thank you.